Tell me about your experiences with competing then, John.
So yeah, that was the first time I competed was actually one of the scariest things I've done. And yeah, it reminds me of when we were talking earlier where we said about as an adult, you just don't need to do that. Like, it reminded me of loads of experiences that I'd had as a kid where I had to do stuff and didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I just hadn't experienced that for years because I just didn't need to do it anymore. There's so many stuff I'd be like, I'm scared of that, I'm not doing that, don't need to do that, don't do that. And suddenly I forced this upon myself. I was like, I do want to compete. And suddenly, yeah, I was dealing with emotions I hadn't felt since being a kid, which was
So what made you want to push through that then? Because obviously a lot of people would face that. And like I said, you get into your fight or flight mode, and a lot of people would say, do you know what? Why do I need to do this? I'm getting out of it. So why do you put yourself through it?
I think some of it was just the stage of life I was at that I just wanted to push myself. But it was also, I think I saw it like when I was learning to play my instruments, I was also scared of playing live. But I've just felt like you have to do it. What's the point? What's the point of learning to play in your bedroom if you never play live? Like, the whole point is to entertain others. That's the whole point. Yeah. So that spurred me on to do that. And it felt in a similar way, like it's something you have to do. It just felt like, what's the point of training and getting better and better if you don't test it and do it under pressure?
Yeah.
And
I think that's the same for me as well, to be honest. I think that is another one of the reasons why I competed, is because without competition, I don't think I'd even train. I don't see the points. I mean, it's okay just to come down, and like I said, there's benefits of the social element and the staying fit, and I do like all that as well, but I don't think I would have invested myself as much as I did if it wasn't for the competition side of it. I think that's what really pulled me into it. So do you feel confident competing now?
Now? No, still no, but way better. Like I can deal with it so much better now. So it just shows you everything, you do get used to it a bit, don't you?
Yeah, everything becomes more manageable. Yeah. I think it's always the fear of the unknown more than anything else.
Yeah.
And that's why I still get nervous now competing, because you never just quite know what's going to happen. You never know, am I going to arrive to the place on time without missing my matches? Is there going to be adequate toilet paper in the toilets so I can use the toilet, because that's going to be happening a lot of times? Who am I going to be fighting? There's all these things that are unknown, and that's the most nerve-wracking thing. Once you get on the mats, you're just doing jiu-jitsu again.
Yeah.
The actual task at hand is not that scary.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even like stepping into a cage and doing MMA fights, it's the same kind of thing, I guess, but there's always that element of getting hurt. Yeah. And you could get hurt in a jiu-jitsu match as well, but things can go really badly wrong in something like MMA or boxing and that kind of thing. So there's probably more reason to be nervous in those situations, although probably the nerves are similar, I'd say. Jiu-jitsu, you're not really going to get hurt. So actually, when you rationalise it, there's not that much to be scared about. I think one of the things is people watching as well. But again, that's with anything, like doing this podcast today, having a camera on you, a little bit of pressure. People are going to be watching it, judging you. I think that's probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
But that's also why it's important to let go of not caring what people think. I think the more you do that, I think you find yourself in a better place. Yeah. Although it is a balance again. Because there's a lot of people out there that don't care what people think, but they are idiots. And they probably should care a bit more what people think. So I think there's a balance as well. Like, you shouldn't just not care at all.
Like everything. It's always finding that balance.
I think balance is really important, man, with everything that you're doing. You can't go, too far one way or the other.
That unknown thing's definitely true in competing. It is the fear of the unknown. So you can always, there's some unknowns that you can get rid of, which make it easier to compete. That's what I think I'm at. But there's always some nerves, because there's some unknown, like you say, you can never get rid of. Like what's going to happen in the match. Yeah. And stuff like that. You can never get rid of that. So you'll always have nerves for that. But you can, all the other unknowns are weighing on you as well. And then eventually you can make them not as bad. But yeah, my first competition, I was just next level. I was so nervous. It was unbelievable. And especially I did gi first, and I was way more comfortable in that, because I knew I had a clear strategy from the beginning. Like, grab hold of him, pull guard, and I had like a guard I wanted to play. So I was way less nervous. But my second ever match on the same day, first comp, was no gi, and that was just next. Like I was more nervous for that than the gi, even though that was technically my first match. And yeah, because I'm still not great at having a game for no gi now, but even then it was even worse. And I was just so nervous because it meant that unknown was magnified. Because I didn't even know exactly what I was going to do. And I couldn't. And like I'd been talking to you, and you were saying like like figure out your A game and what you want to do. But I just, by the time it got to that comp, I just still hadn't done that, and I was so nervous. And I remember, I went on, and it went okay. Like I held my own, because I remember one of the biggest things was being like, I'm going to just get guillotined in 10 seconds or something, which that came later on in a different comp, but it wasn't the first one, so that's good. And I was just, but it did go into autopilot a bit, and it wasn't actually that bad. Just held my own, and then I remember, I still lost obviously, but held my own. And then you were watching me that one, and I remember you sort of like looking as if like you were saying, like it felt like you were saying good job, like just for doing it and for doing all right, even though I lost. But I just had to like beeline for a seat, and I just took straight off. I still had the little band thing you were on, so they had to like chase me for that. But I had to sit down, and then when I sat down, like I could barely move. Like it's like all the blood just like, I don't know, it was weird. I just went like lightheaded, and it was something to do with the adrenaline and nerves. I've never had that again, but that was the worst one. So, but my first no-gi match was the most nervous I've ever been.
I think everyone's first one is like that. I can remember the first time I competed, and like outside of a club comp anyway, the first time I actually went to a competition outside, it was almost like an out-of-body experience where it's really hard to explain, but I remember almost like not wanting to go in there. It's almost like there's a pit of alligators or something, and there's a ball in the middle, and you got to grab it, or whatever's in the middle, you got to grab it out, but you're like, I don't want to do it. I know something bad's gonna happen. I don't want to do it. And it feels a bit like that. It feels almost like you need a push just to get in there and actually do it. And you almost like drag yourself in there, thinking, I really don't want to be here because I don't like all the feelings that I'm getting and this rush of adrenaline and it's like excitedness and being scared. And for the most part, I can't even remember the first matches I had in MMA or grappling. The MMA one was even worse. I remember just, and I won as well, but I remember not even being able to think through the fight. It was all autopilot. I remember at one stage being mounted on the guy, and it just, all my consciousness kind of just came back for that few seconds. And I was like, what's going on? I'm in mount. Like, I feel scared that I'm in mount. Like, what should I be doing? And then it just kind of like, I blacked out again. And then I'd won by a triangle, and it was all over. And so some of the first time you're doing these things is some of the most mentalist experiences ever. And, but that's why you got to go towards it, man. You got to keep putting yourself in those positions, get more confident doing it. The bravery comes along. Bravery only exists when you actually face the things that are difficult. You're not a brave person if you don't go towards fear. Do you know what I mean? You got to face fears, and that's how you become that better person. So, and again, it's not like we're going to war and people are shooting, real bullets at us or anything. So sometimes you can like big it up to be something that is way bigger than it really is. It's just a sport.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
But you can't control it, because I knew that, and I would tell myself that. I'm like, this doesn't mean anything. It's just jiu-jitsu. It's just some tiny little competition in Coventry. Like, it doesn't mean anything. But you can't control what your body does to you.
100%, man.
And that's what's weird. But in a way, that's the good thing that you get from it. Is to deal with that. Because I've never felt that before, so it was a good experience to have that.
Yeah, and it does get easier, and you just learn how to deal with the nerves more. So the nerves will always be there, and they should be there, and you want them to be there. Because when you're doing something that has some importance, you should feel nervous about it. And when the nerves come, you know that they're there. You channel them in the right direction, and you complete the task that you need to do under that pressure of nervousness. And again, that's another important skill to learn. So, what were you going to say then before I interrupted you?
I just remember saying, from competition, I ended up booking a skydive. Because I remember, I thought, because that scares me, and I don't like heights and stuff. And I remember thinking like I should be able to do it now. Done, like pushing myself, and so I did that. And then I remember thinking, that was the point I was going to say, is that after that I thought, now competition's going to be easy because I've done this. And I was actually, this competition still made me more nervous than the skydive.
Yeah.
Like there's something about competition that does something to you, which I think is good.
Do you know what? I did a skydive a few years back, and I found it dead easy because I just put myself into competition mindset and just thought, right, I'm just going to face it. I am nervous, but I'm just going to just get through it, stay relaxed, breathe.
Yeah.
And then, in the next few hours, it'll be over. But the biggest thing for me was knowing that I was going to be strapped to some expert who knows exactly what they're doing. And all I'm doing is basically giving my body to them to get me down to the floor.
Yeah.
I'm not going to actually do anything. So I felt actually quite comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Despite the fact, I could die.
Yeah. It's out your hands though. You don't have to do anything.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas fighting and competing and whatever, it's the hardest thing about competition is that you've got to make decisions in those moments of fear.
Yeah.
And not everyone can do that. So it's one thing, and I give anyone praise who goes to competition, turns up, does the day, and whatever your results, I take my hat off to anyone who can do it. But it's not just about that. That is one element of it. You've got to be able to put yourself in that position, and you've got to make the correct judgments and the right decisions under that pressure, and ultimately win. Like, you're there to win. Like, if you're not winning under that pressure and everything else that's going on, then you haven't really completed the task. But like I say, anyone who actually does compete, I'll always tip my hat to them and say, well done for facing it. And there's so many things that you've benefited from doing it, even if you've been destroyed.
Yeah.
But like I say, actually to be able to be one of the best guys, you've got to go into that kind of firing line and get a result out of it as well. And that's the hardest thing to do, because you make the wrong decision and that's it. You've lost the match, or you've lost points at least, or whatever else. So that's the hardest thing, is making the correct decision at the right time. And that is another skill in itself as well.
And every little decision affects everything. Like the match can end in so many different ways based on so many different reactions from both people.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, really. And it's just one little thing can be the difference in you winning and losing. So many different ways.
Yeah, and this is why I've said to people about putting a physical and mental pressure on people when you're doing a sport. So obviously I'm talking from a jiu-jitsu point of view, but if you look at all sports, let's say it's football or something, if one team puts pressure on the other side, eventually they make a mistake, and that's usually how the other team maybe scores a goal, or like I said, whatever it is. Look at tennis, same thing. If you can put enough pressure back on the other person, giving the ball back all the time, and make them overextend more and more and more and more, eventually the pressure becomes too much and they make a mistake. That's usually what happens for the most part. So a lot of the time when I go into competition, I know I'm going to have to make these decisions, but what I'm thinking is I don't have to make the perfect decisions. I just have to make better decisions than the other guy.
Right.
So if he makes worse decisions than me and makes mistakes, then I probably win. So for me, it's just about putting enough pressure on the other person to force those errors out of them. And when the errors come, I've just got to make sure that I'm good enough to capitalise on those errors. And I think that's a big part of competing as well, from kind of a mental aspect, mental side of things. So it takes a bit of the pressure off you trying to be perfect. You've just got to be better than the other guy.
Yeah.
So, but then it depends how good the other guy is as well. And he's putting pressure on you.
Yeah.
And when you're under pressure, again, you've still got to make some decisions at some point to get past that sticking point and ultimately get to winning the match.
Yeah.
So.